Welcome, welcome again to another rendition of WTF Interviews. My name is Sir Royce Briales. I'm with my prestigious co-host, Dr. Raheem Young. How's it going, my brother?
I'm well, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. No complaints over here.
That's good.
I'm also pleased to announce we have a special guest, Derrick Dease. How's it going, my brother?
Going well.
Good, good. All right, so first question we normally ask is how many kids you got and what do you do professionally?
Okay, so I have 4 kids. My oldest is 22. My youngest is 8. I have a 15-year-old. Well, I'm sorry, I have a 19-year-old as well as a 16-year-old. So I have 4 kids. Professionally, I'm the executive director of Man to Man Fatherhood Initiative. It's a nonprofit whose sole purpose is provide the means for men to be better dads. I also pastor. So that's sort of the nutshell what I do professionally.
That's cool. Can you talk about how pastoring has impacted the way that you father?
Sure. From the faith community, we understand the perspective that God created family way before he established the church. Way from the beginning, he said, therefore let a man leave mother and father and cling to his wife, there should be one flesh. So from that framework, we see that the role of the man was to ban around the family, to provide the protection, provide the guidance. And it later on goes on to say, if a man does not know how to take care of his own, he's worse than an infidel, or he's worse than an unbeliever. The role of the man is to care for the family, and to father it means to basically look after or to embrace and nurture and guide which is under your watch. So it definitely comes from to me the nucleus of faith, being able to mirror God's plan in taking care of the family. So I see it as God's calling. Part of God's calling to man is to take care of the family. To multiply and be fruitful is more than just make babies. It's also to multiply the wisdom, multiply the guidance, and teach your family what it is to take care, nurture, and guide, and replicate that model from generation to generation.
I like that what you said about like multiplying is more than just having kids, because usually when you hear that, people think just popping out babies or having children, but it's more to it than that. I like that you spoke on that. So how long have you been involved with you said man to man?
Yes, ever since 2000. There was the Sisters of Charity of St. Augustine. It's a Catholic organization. They were trying to look at ways to serve underserved population. And their primary goal during that time was to help women and children. One of the things they saw they was missing, they were providing help and support to women and children, but where are the fathers? Where's support for the fathers? So there was an RFP put out to try to get the community to wrap around the idea of supporting fathers. So we received our first grant, which was $120,000, a 3-year grant, $360,000, $120,000 a year, to basically help fathers. It was a pilot program, supposed to have only been a 3-year grant. And it was statewide, mostly in South Carolina. It was statewide. It was about 10 programs that were funded. But after the 3rd year, after looking at the data, they started to see the strong return on the investment. That when you actually help men understand their parental roles and teach them that their role is more than just paying child support, but being involved, that you saw better grades from kids because fathers were involved. Children less likely to be in poverty because now the father's contributing financially. Men having greater self-esteem because now there's a sense of accomplishment when you were able to become gainfully employed and help your kids out. So after that 3-year, then the Center for Fathers and Families were formed to help provide the technical assistance around helping father and helping men. So here I am, 21 years later, still doing fatherhood. I have an office in Florence, an office in Florence, South Carolina, as well as Bennettsville. We serve about 4 different counties, helping men understand their parental roles and helping them to get the jobs training to become gainfully employed, but also helping them navigate legal systems. Because what happens is when you first serve child support, you don't get this manual of the do's and don'ts, and if you don't have the full amount and all this kinds of stuff. And so a lot of times men are frightened. So if your child support order is $120 a week, then if you have $95, you don't pay it because like, I don't have the full amount. Not realize you can do what you call good faith payments. That as long as you're showing something on your docket. So we begin to educate men on those terms and let them understand that, hey, there's ways you can do this that may not tell you on the front end. But also we learned that it helps take a burden off the state. Here in South Carolina, to incarcerate a man for child support average about a year's time, because it's going to be a revolving cycle, because once he get out, the meter is still running. He still have that deficit to pay, and even more when he get out. It averaged about $16,000 a year. That's on the burden on the tax collector, on the citizens. But if he goes to prison, that's $30,000. So it's more advantageous to invest in community-based programs where you're only paying a fraction of that to programs to help keep these men out of jail, because it does not help the mother, nor the child, nor the citizens to lock these men up because they didn't have the funds to pay child support. And a lot of times these men are not dead beat, they're just dead broke. So if they're dead broke, they don't have the monies to pay, then we need to help them become gainfully employed, help them navigate barriers, things that are keeping them from becoming gainfully employed. So we're still here 21 years later. We have expanded. We're looking to do more in helping men because families are the bedrock of society.
Yeah.
So your story sounds kind of similar to mine. I started this Welcome to Fatherhood thing when I was first having my first kid. It sounds like you had your first kid around the same time you started your journey. So what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you had to face, running this type of organization and being a dad at the same time?
Probably the biggest challenge is helping agencies that traditionally saw men from a punitive standpoint buy into the idea of partnering to help men. For example, when I first started, of course, I started when I was about, I think, 27. That's when I started Fatherhood. And one of the things I ran into is that, of course, you partner with different agencies to help get their expertise, but also whatever they offer to come in and offer that. One of the things that I found is when I went to do public speaking engagements or civic groups or even trainings at the Department of Social Service, there will be women in the audience like, yeah, but these men are bad. These men are almost like demonizing men, not understanding that there is no one size fit all when it comes down to men. Every man has a different situation of why he's not paying child support or why he's not visiting his child. And once we start taking a deep dive into that and helping, giving anecdotal scenarios of things we've saw, then it helped the women's eyes open up. It's like, wow, I didn't ever think of that if a young lady moves on with her life, she may want her boyfriend now to step into the father role, and the biological father gets ignored or pushed to the side as though that, he doesn't matter. We got a whole new setup. And a lot of times those men back away and wait till the child becomes 18 to try to get into the life. And the whole time the child is feeling as though my dad does not want me. So I guess one of the challenges was getting agencies that systematically incarcerated men or ruled men in for child support, or seeing men on the other side of the table when it comes down to child protective services, getting them to see these men in a different light, wanted and offering to give them a second chance, at least a second look. So that was one of the biggest challenges.
Do you feel like the state benefits from having men in the child support system?
Very much so. I also worked and I've worked in corrections. So when I was a correction officer, one of the things I saw that the prison industry have something, what the prison system has, what you call prison industries. I worked at this prison, and they had and it's amazing though that they had a plant on site, and what they did, they manufactured computer harnesses for computers, and they used them in helicopters and things of that nature. And I saw
this is at the prison.
At the prison.
Okay.
And so these men, I watched these men work in these prisons, and nice sophisticated work wiring these harnesses, and on the outside the job probably would pay about $25 to $30 an hour. Real nice top work, they're doing well. But these guys were being paid almost 32 cents an hour.
Wow.
So I'm looking at this like, wow, but what gets me is that these guys can work in the prison for almost 32 cents an hour for companies that place these factories here. But once they get out of prison, those same companies won't hire them because they have a record. So it was to the advantage for those men to get locked up, because you can use them, basically pay them slave wages. So it was a benefit to the state. And I also saw, of course, in the early 90s, that I still look at this thing, and it just completely just messes with my mind. That when I came up in school, they had voc tech and different types of training you could get involved with while you were in high school. So the average kid, when he graduated, he had a high school diploma, but he also had a trade. And so when they graduated, they can literally work in their own hometown, because you had factories and you had trainings, you had construction jobs and different things that were there that you can really take care of your family pretty decent. But I noticed that, and I'm not going to drift off in politics, but I do realize that once they took the factories away and moved them away and offshored them, a lot of the voc tech training left the schools as well. And those same trainings that they took from the schools got placed in the prison. So now the only way a young man that can get any training to help himself, he's got to get locked up and go to prison. So while it benefits the state and benefits the factories, because now you have these jobs you would have to pay benefits and $25 to $30 an hour for, now you can get this guy. And then they put concerning sentencing. Now every guy has to do 85% of his time. So now he's got an extension on his sentence, that even if he does well and go to and go to chapel and read books and get his degree, he can't go before the parole board and get out early, because there's a mandatory he's got to do 85% of his time. So that family suffering, and the companies as well as the state is winning. So I do see some advantages there.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like the connection between like the training. You said that the only place that they really have it or have access to the opportunity is in prison. It's like they're training them in order to be low income, pretty much slave labor, like how you said.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Absolutely, because now if you go to the your federal prisons, he can get HVAC training, he can get construction training, he can get automobile mechanics training, that's at the federal prison. At the state prison, some of the similar training, but now over the last, actually this year, and prior to that, they were starting to remove that. When I was as an officer in prison, they started removing a lot of the trainings, because they wanted to bring it back to the old ball and chain days, where you just sitting there just working on these factories, working in the in-house factory in the prison. And the only training you would get then was just to do your job there. So there's been a gradual decline to make sure that these men have low skills or no skills at all. And once they get out and they don't have skills, then they're going to, the recidivism rate is going to go back up. He's going to reoffend because he's becoming institutionalized. And so it's amazing, man. And that's why our goal is to help these open their eyes, to let them see, hey, there are some things that that have been, set against you, but there's another route you can take to take care of you and your family.
Oh, I was just gonna say, well, can you talk about your relationship with your father, like how you all's relationship was when you were coming up?
Actually, yeah, I had a good father. I had the ideal dad. My dad actually passed away last year, but he was a strong man. He was a pastor. He was a man of faith, but he was a man's man. He believed in men taking care of themselves, taking care of your family, and that if a woman did not work, he called it, if she didn't hit a lick of the black snake, then that's still a man responsibility. And so that was his philosophy, that a man is to take care of his family, no matter, even if he had to dig a ditch to do it. So he basically put that value in me, a work ethic, protector, and just being available for your family. He taught me that the best thing you can spend on your child is not so much money, but time. I learned a lot from him. And I appreciate the relationship I had. He was always a man that he lived by morals, he lived by principles, and he taught that to me and my two brothers, to always live by those principles. Man's word is his bond, and make sure that you stand up for what's right, even if you're the only one standing. So he was definitely a man with what I call old school values, and I think those old school values we can actually use today.
What would you say has been the biggest lesson that you've learned from your children?
The biggest lesson I've learned from my children is one size doesn't fit all. You have to pay attention to their different personalities. They have the same needs, but in different ways. I have there's a compare and contrast between my two daughters. So I have a daughter that's 16 and my daughter that's 19. The daughter that's 19, she just wants to, she's the life of the party. She walks in, she likes the room, she likes to talk, she likes to, socialize. And that's what she wants. My other daughter, she basically just wants to talk about the latest things that are going on, in her school and things of that nature, and just, similar personalities, but different. So I have to dress them different. So I've learned from them that money is good, but they rather have my attention and quality time. Being a listener, I've learned that more than anything, that they just want to know that they matter, that they are respected. So a lot of times we think kids just want these extravagant things. Those things are nice, and they will mention those things. But the biggest things that light up their world is actually your time and attention. I've learned that from each one of them, and their personalities are different. Therefore, I have to give them different levels of attention, because one size doesn't fit all.
So how long did it take for you to learn that? Was it like, did it take some years, or was it something that was instinctual?
Believe it or not, I've learned that, but I'm still learning that. Because your kids even show you how that they're more like you than what you think. They cause you to examine yourself. But I guess I learned that from, I would probably say, when my oldest daughter was about 10 and my oldest son he would have been about 14 during that time. And I started to notice something, because I was coming off of divorce, and actually I had custody of those kids. I actually raised my two kids before I had my next two kids with my next wife. And I noticed that, by being a single father during that time, of course, I could provide the food, the clothing, the shelter, the bare necessities. But I started noticing that there were some emotional needs that they were not getting from their mother at the time because she was not available. So I started seeing those emotional needs, and it was more than just, hey, you're eating, you're going to school, you got clothes. I started to notice that they started manifesting some problems in school. Started getting calls from teachers that my daughter's acting up, and like, why are you acting like this? And I started realizing it's because she didn't have the love and attention from her mother at the time. So I really had to figure out, okay, what can I do to, can't take a mother's place, but what can I do to try to fix that? Because as men, we want to be fixers. We want to make sure we solve. We want to put the fire out as soon as possible. So I started seeing some emotional needs there, and then as she began to become a teenager, I started seeing some more problems she was having. And it was because of that void. Uh, then when she would come into contact with her mother, there would be conflict because she was demanding something from her that she didn't get from childhood. Because when we divorced and I had custody of my kids, my daughter was 10 months old. My son was about to turn 4. So then, and I noticed there are some needs that he still wrestles with. Because not an absent father, but an absent mother at that time. So when I got married, my wife, she had to learn, how to be a stepmother and how to deal with, okay, now I'm stepping in to be a mother, but now it's almost like I'm competing with their biological mother because, she wanted them to still call her mom and, as though that she wasn't there, as though she was there and all. So it was a lot of conflict. So I started seeing some emotional needs that my kids were wrestling with. So that taught me to try to be available in the moment and try to empathize with what they may be feeling and try to help them through that.
How would you say the relationship between your two oldest and your two youngest are? Because they're all your kids, but two are from different moms. Because I'm divorced too, and I'm kind of going through that too. My ex is in a relationship. She's had a kid, and they kind of have a blended, I guess, family now. So how did they deal with that transition?
They dealt with it. They dealt with it okay, but I think the biggest challenge was um, after I had more kids, and of course they were in the house. They lived in the household. That seeing that the younger kids had their biological mother in the house with them every day, and they was hoping to see their mother on the weekends or whenever she was going to come down for the holidays. I could tell that bothered them some, but we would constantly talk to them and let them know it's okay to feel a certain way, but don't hold that, don't allow that emotion to dominate you. Allow your mother to be who she can be, and just know that there are other people that loves you. And so now my kids, they're older now, but they're doing better with that now, because I think they're starting to see the world for what it is and starting to realize, hey, you can never fill that void, but you can involve yourself in life and sort of get immersed and get occupied in other things versus just looking at what you did not have, and start appreciating what you do have. And I think that was the biggest lesson we had to show them. Look at who is in your life, and don't really look at who's not in your life. So they don't really have a bad relationship, but I do know sometimes I have noticed in the past that they will look and see that, hey, wow, she has her mother and her dad together. And of course, we got my dad, and and then there's our stepmother. But I could tell that they felt a certain kind of way, but they never really had any animosity towards their siblings. I could tell they just wished that their biological mother was more involved.
How's their relationship now with their mom?
They have a It's an interesting relationship,
Okay.
to say the least, because even though that, my daughter, she has her own house now. My son, he sells cars, and he stays with his grandmother on his mother's side. They they see the mother, they spend time, they do things together, but you can tell that there's still a little soft spot there, because I think it still bothers my daughter, because sometimes she always felt that maybe her mom's spent more time with other people than they did them, and put other people before them. But they have an improved relationship. I'll say that. Yeah, they have an improved relationship, and I think it's a relationship of more understanding. We know who she is, we know who we are, and let's kind of let that. And I guess they say they'll roll with that. They
Yeah.
don't have these lofty expectations, knowing that they can't go back and start over. They just kind of, stop looking for her to be mommy dearest, and just accept her for who she is and what she can do. And when she does buy you something, or if y'all do go out to the mall together, and accept that.
Mm. Did their mother ever have other children?
No.
Okay.
And what is your relationship like with your ex-wife now? Is it good, or is it just pass and go?
Pass and go.
Yeah.
It could have been better, but sometimes you know how it is whenever a relationship goes sour, and it wasn't, and I'm not pleading innocent, but it wasn't really any fault of my own. That's why I had custody. That's why the judge saw fit to give me custody. I was the one present. I was there, working, taking care of my kids. It was home and work. That's what I did. And so now it's more, I think she's remarried. So it's, hey, how you doing? And that's pretty much it. That's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
You mentioned before how you see similarities in your children, in yourself, as far as like between you and your kids. Which one of your kids is the most like you, if you had to point one out?
I would definitely have to say my 8-year-old. I mean, I have a sense of humor. I like to have fun, but I have a sensitive side. I'm very empathetic when it comes down to people's needs, but I have a sense of humor as well, and I'm very observant. And when I see him, it's funny. My wife always telling me, "You ain't nothing but a little Derrick." Call little Derrick all the time. I don't know whether that's good. I don't know what she mean, good or bad, but because she mostly says that to him when he's sarcastic, so I don't know. He reminds me a lot of myself. I see a lot of similarities, but it's amazing. But I see a little bit of myself in all of them in different ways,
Mhm.
in different ways. But mostly, probably my 8-year-old.
All right, cool. I know we're getting close to time, so I have one last question for you.
Okay.
I know you have, like you said, 22 years of experience working with fathers, right?
Yeah, 21. Yeah.
Oh, 21. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could give advice to like a young father, what would it be, and why?
If I was to give advice to a young father, I would say that don't let anybody minimize your role as a father. Many times when you have a young father, you're not going to know everything to do. There's not a manual that comes with fatherhood when your child comes out. But be present. You may not get everything right, but be present. Don't run from the responsibilities. Even if she has another husband, or a child stays with the grandmother, that does not minimize who you are. Even though they may say you're no good and we don't need you anymore, just send a child support check. Don't run from the responsibility and say, well, I don't matter. Your child, you matter. In the eyes of your child, you got an S on your chest. You're Superman. You mean the world to that child. Even though the mothers, the grandmothers, everybody may downplay who you are, what your role is, because I feel like they got it. They got the money, they got the resources. They really don't need you. Don't back away. because one day your kid is going to wonder whether or not you really wanted them or whether or not you abandoned them. So stay present. Fight to be in your child's life. When I say fight, I'm talking about there are legal ways that you can get visitation. There's something called pro se visitation, where if you don't have the money, many times the courts will waive the $150 filing fee so you can get visitation. Many times that's every other weekend, and they will alternate holidays. But be present. Know that you play a great role in the life of your kids, and don't minimize who you are as a man.
That's great.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Advice.
Derrick, one last thing I have. I already asked you this question already. You gave me the answer. I just want to read it and actually kind of elaborate on it a little bit. My question to you was, what does fatherhood mean to you? And Derrick, you said nurturing, protecting, and guidance. Real short and sweet, but to the point.
Gotcha. Yeah, it means that to me because the old saying goes that the mother gives the first birth, but it's the daddy that gives the second birth. Dads provide a sense of understanding who you are, stability, a level of security. When my dad was in the home when I was little, I never feared anything because I felt like if anybody came to my door, my dad could handle it. I don't care if Hulk came to that door, my dad was there. And it gave me a sense of security. So I feel that every dad should supply that to their kids. And the nurturing side, even though people say, well, mothers, they're nurturers. Fathers nurture too, but we nurture different. We nurture in a different way, but it's essential and needed. So I think our job is to help guide, help give our kids. Statistics show that when a father is not in the life of his daughter, then the daughter, has a higher preposition to go and exhibit a lot of deviant behavior and promiscuous behavior because she's looking for love. She's looking for that father's love and whatever man she can get it from. So we have to provide that nurture and that guidance. So I think that's and the data is showing 78% of prison inmates come from fatherless homes. So when we're not there, we impact the community impacts society, and that impacts the nation. So our roles are vitally important.
So Derrick, you in your answer, you said something that that was interesting to me. Can you talk about like the second birth?
Yes. So whenever when we think about birthing, we just think about physical birth, that when the woman carries a child for 9 months of development and she brings the child out. But that's the same way that a father does spiritually to his sons, to his daughters. It's almost like a rites of passage that we bring them, we birth them into understanding what their roles are. We birth our daughters into understand what a father's supposed to be like. The first man she falls in love with should be a father. So she knows what type of man to look for. The sons, we birth sons into the rites of passage of what is masculinity. What does it mean to be a role? Because many times there was a study done. So it was an article written by Dr. Wade Horn. He was talking about that they had this enclosement or this sanctuary with elephants, and they noticed that the elephants' population was overgrowing. So when the population was overgrowing, they removed the bull elephants or the male elephants out of captivity, and they put them in another place. And so you had the mother elephants and the sons. So what happened was they started noticing something very strange. They started noticing a lot of the animals was gorged and killed, and they started finding buffaloes and different animals gorged, and and other elephants and the rhino, especially the rhino. They would start noticing some of the rhinos that they had in the sanctuary, just gored, but they noticed that the tusks were not removed. So that eliminated that it could have been poachers. So what they did, they set up some cameras to try to record what was going on. And to their surprise, they saw that the young elephants were killing the rhinos, because what happens is once the young elephants start to grow, they exhibit what they call, of course, testosterone. So what they did, they brought the male elephants in, the bull elephants, they brought them back in the enclosure, and all the killing ceased, because the young elephants learned from the bull elephants how to handle their testosterone.
Mm.
So even in the animal kingdom, it shows that when you remove the males, or when you remove the landmarks, the ones that birth them into understanding of life, you have chaos. And so many times we're throwing all these programs, monies to all these programs that just focus on activities. We got to go back to the structure of bringing the men back. If you want to stop the chaos in society, gangs, killing, and all these type of things, you have to bring the males back into the picture.
So I'm gonna call this a Hall of Fame episode. Dr. Young, do you agree? Can we put this in the Hall of Fame? Can we?
Oh yeah, we can put it in the Hall of Fame.
Let's do it. This is, man, it's been one of my favorites. So again, Derrick, I appreciate you for your time, for your candor, for sharing your story, and even that story, the elephant story. I never heard that story before. That's a powerful story in relation to fatherhood. Dr. Young, did you have anything else? Any other comments? Any other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions. But Derrick, if people wanted to get in contact with you or to learn more about Man to Man, how can they do that?
Gotcha. So we have a website. It's called man2manfathers.com. Man2manfathers.com. Or they can call 1493. Actually, that's my cell, 535-1493. But they can also call the office number, which is 843-479-4177.
Okay, great. Derrick, can you give your cell number again? Because I think you muted yourself when you were saying it.
Okay. 843-535-1493.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, again, Derrick, I appreciate you. Don't hang up. We're gonna do a little, powwow after we in the session here. But again, for myself, for Sir Royce Briales, and for Dr. Raheem Young, and also for our special guest, Derrick Dease. Thanks again for listening to WTF Interviews, and stay tuned for further announcements.